Last name, you pronounce it for me?
Franken, Franken.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and move that microphone around wherever you'd like it, as long as you're speaking into it. They're kind of turned up and fairly sensitive, so if it gets too close, we'll hear you breathing, but you're doing fine. And then when the parties start asking you questions, you can move that around wherever you like. All right, go ahead and raise your right hand. You'll be all right. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Thank you. Please state your name.
Brad Franken.
And Mr. Franken, you own, is it 3 parcels you have an interest in Sioux County that are presently targeted for this hazardous proposed pipeline?
Yes.
And did you, sir, cause to be filed what we've been referring to as pre-filed testimony, question and answer in written form, along with various attachments supporting your testimony?
Yes.
And as you sit here today, can you think, first I'm going to ask you about any material errors that you would like to correct?
Yes.
And can you tell me the first one?
On my map that I was sent, they did not have the well on there.
And when you reference a map you were sent, you're referencing a document Summit sent to you?
Yes.
All right. And you're concerned that their records do not reflect the existence of a well?
Yes.
Can you, just for clarification purposes, give us generally on the property using north, south, east, west, where the well is located?
From the path, it'd be to the west, approximately 300 feet from where the proposed line would be.
So at its closest approximate distance, again, using Summit's incorrect map they provided you, it's approximately, by your judgment, 300 feet
Yes.
away. Okay. And I take it that's a concern you have?
Yep.
And what about any other errors or things that you believe need corrected?
Where they want to run it is basically the only access to the field we have. It's a high traffic area. We haul our wagons, trucks, we haul manure, a lot of heavy equipment over that part of the field where we farm.
All right. And in terms of updates, do you have any updates since the time of your pre-filed testimony?
Yeah, the well, it's real close to our neighbors. Line fence, they're approximately 40 feet off our line fence, and the line would go real close to their property and their housing.
And you know what? Could we pull up Exhibit 644, please? And I would offer 644. That's an updated Summit map, the route map of Iowa, where they have embedded the proposed pipeline diameters as well as the CO2 emitters by name. Just taken off their website. Can you zoom in the northwest portion to see Sioux County? And just maybe a couple more clicks there. Just one more. Thank you. Now, you see Sioux County, sir, and where it has Siouxland Energy Cooperative. Where, just to orientate us, are your parcels in Sioux County? Are you north of the Siouxland Energy Cooperative or south?
We're south, right about that area right there.
Okay. All right. Very good. Just wanted to make sure. And again, I would offer Exhibit 644.
With no objection, the board will admit.
All right. And so then back to your pre-file testimony, sir, were there any further updates you wanted to address?
My concern is too also with how much volume of water they're going to use for cooling CO2. When you compress stuff, it gets very hot.
And were you here during the questioning of the prior witness?
No, I was not.
Okay, all right. Let me ask it this way. Have you seen has Summit provided you any documents relative to what they plan to do with the water or any expert opinions of how the water can quote unquote be cleaned or safe for discharge back in onto the ground or into any waterways?
No, I have not.
All right. If we were to go through your pre-filed testimony and ask you some of the same questions that you previously answered in writing, would your answers, subject to the updates and corrections we've discussed, be substantially similar?
Yep.
And I understand you also included some attachments supporting your testimony. Is that correct?
Yes.
At this time, we would offer exhibits 398 through 402.
Are there objections?
Assuming that is just the pre-filed testimony and exhibit set, we have no objections.
That's correct.
Board will admit as labeled.
All right. Then exhibit 645, sir, you've caused to be filed and uploaded in this matter, exhibit 645, and that's known as the Navigator, the former competing CO2 pipeline in Iowa, and their CO2 air dispersion guidance that was made publicly available in the Illinois docket. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the significance, or why did you feel that was necessary to be uploaded into the docket?
My parents live close by, and I understand it's quite a large line, 24-inch, and yeah, it's a lot of material if it ever ruptured.
And you understand their estimates of exposure of 40,000 parts per million on a 20-inch line is at least 2,920 feet.
Yes.
All right. And have you seen any data from Summit to suggest that the Navigator data is incorrect?
Not that I recall.
I would offer exhibit 645.
Objections?
My only question, and I assume this is correct, that with the redactions in that it otherwise is compliant with any restrictions out of the Illinois Commission.
Yep. So this was publicly filed. There are redactions within the document, as can be seen. Various data has been already redacted, so it's a publicly available document.
No objection.
All right, with no objection, the board will admit. Give it the way it do.
Thank you. All right, sir. With that, I'm going to now turn you over to others who may have questions for you. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Mr. Franken, I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club. And in your written testimony, you made a statement that you think you will lose income if the pipeline crosses your land. What makes you think you're going to lose income?
Because plants don't grow as well on it, especially in a drought environment. We've got evidence of that with the pipeline for the oil that went through Dakota Access Pipeline.
Is the Dakota Access Pipeline on your property?
No, it's not, but it's off a friend of mine's, and it went from 240 bushel an acre on corn down to 70.
Really?
Yes.
And is that still the case some 6 or 7 years later?
That was this year.
You've also said in your written testimony that you think the pipeline would decrease the value of your land. What makes you think that?
I wouldn't want it. I don't know why anybody else would.
Have you had an appraiser or anything to verify that?
The opinion is, yeah, it would devalue it. I've not had an appraiser. But we just had a land auction 2 miles away, and it went for $26,000 an acre.
Sioux County has the record on land sales, don't they?
So far,
You've also said in your testimony you think there'd be damage to the tile on your property that can't be repaired. Well, first of all, what makes you think that there'd be damage to your tile?
They go right through it. Their tile is at 3.5 feet, and they want to bury it 4 feet.
But hasn't Summit said they would go below your tile and not damage it?
No, I have not.
You haven't heard them say that?
No, I have not.
Did you talk to any Summit, a land agent, a representative about your tile?
Yes, I did. Carla Walters.
And what was the response?
They'll make it work, and it wasn't very reassuring.
And are you aware that the Summit has said they'll repair any damaged tile?
Yes, they did. Well, she said that.
Yeah.
But like I said, it wasn't very reassuring.
But do you think the tile can't be repaired?
Well, water doesn't run uphill. It's got to pull by gravity. And, compaction. It's, yeah.
You also mentioned damage to a creek on your property. Can we bring up the KMZ file, please? Does this appear to be your property?
Yep.
Well, there are actually two red areas. Are both of those your property or just one of them?
The one on the south is my dad's, and I'm representing him as well. The creek runs right here.
So you're pointing to the north parcel, just a little bit south of the center line?
Yeah, if you look right here, here's where the creek runs.
I see. So just to the east, just to the west of the south portion of the north parcel, looks like there's some buildings.
Yeah, right here is where our neighbor lives. And he is approximately 40 feet off the line fence.
About how far from the pipeline?
Within 300 feet. And the well that I was talking about is right on this little point here.
On your father's
Right there.
Okay. And so the creek goes through your neighbor's farmstead, so to speak, and then up into your property. Is that correct?
Yep.
And so what makes you think there'd be damage to the creek?
Well, he's moving a lot of dirt. I don't know if they'd, got the established banks with sod and stuff like that to prevent washing if you get high amount of rain.
Has Summit told you they would bore under the creek?
I had no recollection of that.
Well, let me ask you, what conversations have you had with Summit land agents or their representatives?
That's usually when I was working. Carla was very professional, but it's frustrating at the same time.
Just southeast of your property looks like a pretty sizable, maybe an industrial site, or what is that?
That is Center Fresh Eggs.
It's a chicken capo?
Yep.
How many chickens do they have there, do you know?
I'm guessing 6.5 million. They have two different sites. I think there is 4.6 on this site alone.
At 4.6 million?
Yep.
And then, on your father's property, which is the south red portion, looks like there's also some buildings there.
Yep.
What are those?
Hey, let's see. These are hog confinements, and here's our pasture with our horses. And from time to time, we raise calves.
Now, the hog confinement is not on your
No.
father's property, but there are some buildings on your father's property. What
Yep.
are those? What are those?
You have a barn here with the free stall, loafing shed. This is a hay shed right here. It's our grain bin. Here's our machine shed, and here's our corn crib. And then my parents' house is right by the trees there.
Okay, so somebody does live there.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that in your prepared testimony there that you're concerned about a safety risk. What makes you think there's a safety risk?
No, CO2 is heavier in there, and that's in a valley.
And did that concern become heightened when you saw the navigator information from Illinois?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Whippel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Franken, I represent 7 counties in this proceeding. Over here. Okay. Sorry. I just want to clear up a couple distances in your testimony. You say that the pipeline comes within 150 feet of your neighbors, but then you also say, this is on page 4 of the testimony, the pre-filed testimony, that the home is within 38 feet of the south fence line, with the pipeline being 50 feet across that. So is it 88 feet from the pipeline that your neighbors are?
Are you talking about this fence line right here?
I'm looking at your pre-filed testimony at page 4.
Yeah, because I went and measured it. I got pictures how far it was, the line fence.
I mean, I'm not great at math, but it looks like it's 88 feet if you add the 50 feet and the 38 feet.
Right, yes.
So it's your testimony that the line comes within 88 feet of your neighbor.
Yes.
What concerns you about that?
Well, if it ruptures right there, his house is gone. According to the studies that I've seen when it ruptures, and it's a 24-inch pipe.
And what's the name of your neighbor?
John Foos, F-U-O-S-S.
Did Mr. Foos attempt to intervene in the proceeding? Do you know?
Not that I know of.
Have you talked about this with Mr. Foos?
Oh, absolutely.
Is there a remedy or an option for him to protest this? Does he know? Do you know?
Not that I know of.
Are there any other neighbors that are that close to the line around you?
Friend of mine, a mile across the section, it's within 1,400 feet of where the pipeline is projected to go. Yeah, he wanted to go through their land, but then he just hopped over the other side of the line fence, which, yeah, a line fence isn't going to stop drift or anything like that.
Have you tried to negotiate a different route across your parcel in order to keep your neighbors safer?
I think I have, yes.
And was that successful?
No.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Grunhagen?
I'm right over your right shoulder.
Oh,
Hi, Mr. My name is Chris Gruenegan, representing Farm Bureau, and I just have some questions about some photographs that you included with your testimony.
okay.
If the staff could bring up page 242 of his direct testimony. Could you describe for me what that's showing?
Okay, that is the line fence, from his house, the corner of his house to the line fence. That's where that weed is where the line fence is.
What do you mean by line fence?
The property, his property is west of my property. And that's how far his house is from the line fence. And then on my parcel is further up on the, which would be east of the dwelling.
And then could you go ahead and scroll down a couple to the next photograph for attachment number 23. Could you describe what this photograph is?
Okay, that is from his same corner of the house, but to the road. And there's supposed to be a tape measure on there. Oh, there it is. It's 100 feet to the line of the ditch. That's how far he is from the road.
Okay. So you're not actually showing the house or the road, you're just showing your tape
The
measure?
measurement, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I should have took a bigger picture, but photos show on the larger map.
I think we scroll down, I think there's a couple more here. So this is the next attachment.
Yeah, that's where they want to put his driveway is to the left, right here. And then the pipeline would come through here.
So this photograph is showing the proximity of his driveway to the pipeline?
Yes,
Or the proposed route? Okay. And then there may be one more, I believe.
and that's facing south.
And is this his driveway in this photograph?
We are to the, yeah, and that's his mailbox right there, and this is our driveway into the field.
Okay, so this is your field entrance.
Yes, that's the only entrance we have for that field.
And will that field entrance be blocked during construction if the
More than
pipeline is
likely.
built? Okay. And would you still, I assume, would want an access to your field?
Absolutely.
And would you expect Summit to supply that access to the field?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Height?
Hello, Mr. Franken. I'm Chris Hike. I'm a landowner.
Mr. Franken, if you want to move the mic around so you're a little more comfortable, you certainly may.
Just a couple questions. You mentioned about the neighbors being close to the pipeline, and it looked like, I believe you mentioned your parents' house as well. It looked pretty close. When you visited with the Summit agents, did they provide you with any paperwork of warnings or risks or safety information about the pipeline for your property?
Not that I recall. We had a lot of paperwork. I don't know if I read it all.
Oh, thank you very much.
I've got Ms. Coles next. Ms. Ryan, was your name up and down? Okay, sorry, I can't see it around Mr. Whippel. So, Ms. Coles, you don't have to hide. Go ahead, Ms. Coles.
Good morning, Mr. Franken. I'm Jean Cullis. I'm also a landowner. You're very concerned about the water usage and volume
Yes.
and the quantity they will require. to process into the the CO2 gas.
Yes,
Were you here earlier when Mr. Dubinsky mentioned that the water used to cool that process would be released and would be cleaned back into the environment?
no, I did not. No, I did not hear that.
Do you believe that's possible if all of the corn being put into the system for the processing and the cooling is not organic?
Say that again?
100% of the corn used to process this gas at the ethanol plant is not organic.
No.
Therefore, wouldn't there be some byproducts?
Yeah, could be.
When my husband's an engineer, when groundwater is around 55 degrees, when it's used to cool this equipment for the processing, it is warmed up considerably. Therefore, wouldn't there be risk to the environment if this formerly 55-degree water was released back into the environment at a warmer temperature?
Yes, if it was come in contact with fish, they wouldn't survive.
So there's also concern pertaining to our natural resources as a result of this action,
Yes.
not just the water consumption. Do you feel that the IUB board should take this into consideration since one of their jobs is to oversee utilities?
Absolutely. Yesterday, I was also informed by the rural water, the aquifer by Supreme Pack is not regenerating. The levels have not come back.
So the approval of this pipeline permit would be very damaging to the economy and to the natural resources of Iowa.
Yes.
You didn't mention, what is your emergency response system if there is an incident?
It'll be out of Sioux Center, and it's all combustion engines. There's no electric vehicles or anything like that.
With the plume modeling that you became aware of with the Navigator, do you feel that in your area that emergency response would be adequate?
No, absolutely not.
Do you think the board should consider people's lives before a private for-profit company?
Yes.
No further questions, thank you.
Ms. Ryan?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Franken. My name's Anna Ryan, and I represent Carrie Hurth, who's the daughter of a landowner. I just have a few quick questions for you. You indicated that one of the parcel that you're testifying about is your dad's property. Is that correct?
Correct.
And why isn't your dad testifying?
Well, he's 77 years old. And yeah, he figured I could be a spokesperson for him.
Do you have any ownership interest in your dad's parcel?
Yes.
Well,
Potential.
potential. So you're an heir,
Yes,
but not a current owner.
correct.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Dubinsky?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Franken, just a couple of quick follow-ups. One, I just want to get a clarification for the record. Can we pull the KMZ back up? And you had told Mr. Jorde when you first got on the stand that there is a well that's about, I believe you said, 300 feet west of the line. Can we zoom in just a little bit and just have you show roughly where that is?
Keep going. Keep going. Right there.
And again, just because the record will be words as opposed to pictures, there is a difference in the color of the terrain on the KMZ, and there is a small sort of bump out there pointing towards the southeast, about halfway into that parcel, and you're indicating the well is roughly in that little piece that bumps out there, correct?
Correct. And there's two cement curbs there.
Okay, perfect. That's all I had. I just wanted to clarify where that was. And then you had said that there was a auction for land a few miles away that fetched $26,000 per acre on a fee sale. Is that correct?
On a what sale?
Fee. They sold all the rights to the parcel in fee.
As far as I know, yes.
It's true that Summit has actually offered you more than $26,000 on a per acre basis for an easement on your property, correct?
Yep.
No further questions.
Board Member Burns?
Well, Mr. Franken, quick question, if we can pull the KMZ map up, please. So, a few clarifications as well. So other than these two parcels that are highlighted, do you own any other land around these parcels in this area?
My house is right there.
Okay. And then the land directly behind that house is yours, correct?
No, it's my dad's as well.
Okay. And then if we zoom in to the, I guess it'd be to the east of the pipeline, towards the chicken facility. So that land there is not yours, correct?
Correct.
Okay. By chance, do you know what that line is in the field?
That is where an irrigation line was run.
Okay.
They flattened the corn out with that.
Okay. So it's a recent addition, when this picture was taken at least.
They do that every year. They run a irrigation line out to pump the water out of the holding ponds there.
Okay, so those two ponds there are manure ponds for the chicken facility?
No, not the manure. It comes off the egg breaking facility. And then they break the solids down in this tank right here.
So it's not just a laying facility, they're also processing the eggs into a final
Correct.
product?
Correct.
Okay. If we go south of that facility...
There's also a residence here too, right by the silo, or there's a silo here, but it's a house right there. Yep.
And that was one of my other questions, so you read my mind on that one. So that residence there, are they part of the ownership of the Center Fresh, or?
I think that is hired help there now. That
Okay.
used to be the owner.
And then if we go south of Center Fresh to the field south of them, I know that this is not alien crop circles.
No, that's a center pivot irrigation system that comes out of that water facility, and they have test wells there as well.
So do you know by chance, you mentioned the aquifer potentially having some issues with regeneration. Do you know how many gallons they're permitted for on this irrigation system by chance or not?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No.
Do you know by chance, I'm assuming, pretty good water consumption also at the chicken facility?
Correct.
And then you made, you made mention, I just want to clarify, you said something about your neighbors. If there was a potential rupture, the house is gone. What do you mean by the house is gone?
Well, there's a lot of pressure in that pipe, and it would definitely crater the ground, and I bet you would push the basement wall in. Just it's an explosion. High pressure. There's a lot of volume in a 24-inch pipe.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jorde for redirect?
Yes, can we stay on this KMZ? And, sir, the properties in red that are now at the top of the KMZ, immediately west of the chicken facility there, it looks like, the pipeline is on the eastern boundary of your dad's ground. Is that fair?
Yes.
And then in the, as we go up north, as it goes to the east and then crosses across the road, it clips the corner of the chicken facility. Is that right?
That's the way it appears, yes.
So why didn't Summit simply just move the route? Why don't they just move the route off your dad at the very least and put it onto the chicken facility that apparently already.
It was that way originally.
Okay, and what happened as far as your understanding?
I understand Jimmy Dean gave Randy Feenstra a donation.
Money talks.
Yes.
So they had it in a way that would eliminate intruding on your property and keeping it on a parcel that's already agreed to it. But your understanding is the chicken facility didn't want that length of hazardous pipeline on their ground.
Correct. Because the line, when Rural Water put their flags out, it was right about here.
And you're indicating, a couple hundred feet to the right, to the east of where it presently crosses the road?
Just over top of the hill, there's a little knoll there.
And again, I just want to be precise, given that we're not videotaping the screen for the record. So your understanding is that the prior version of the route would have been, what's the name of that road? Let's start there, the east-west road.
410th Street.
Your understanding is that the prior version had the route crossing 410th Street a little further to the east, is that right?
Correct.
And that crossing thereby also where it connected with the prior north-south route would have had the north-south route south of 410th Street on the chicken facility property.
Yes.
All right. And did Summit ask your dad for a competing donation to put it back on the chicken facility property?
No, I did not.
And do you know of any engineering restriction, environmental restriction, or legal restriction, if any, that would prevent the hazardous pipeline route from going back on to the chicken facility where it previously was?
Not that I know of.
And you haven't been told of any?
No.
And you haven't seen any in this docket, correct?
Correct.
Now, you were talking about distances to your neighbor. Is that property the one just north of 410th Street, or where is that? I want to kind of tie that together with the photos of the tape measure.
Okay, the photos of the tape measure, that is right here.
All
yeah,
right.
just north. Correct.
Okay. So, all right, so let's zoom in, please. All right, so what we're talking about now, we're on your dad's property south of 410th Street. The current suggested route on the KMZ deviates a little bit to the northeast, and where it crosses 410th Street, immediately to the west is the home of your neighbor you're concerned about, correct?
Yes, John Foose.
All right. And if we tie that together, sir, with the close-ups of the tape measure and the measurements, that's where you were measuring distances from the proposed pipeline on your property to the location of Mr. Foose's home.
Correct. That first measurement was right here from this corner of the house.
And let me stop you there. We'll do it step by step. The first measurement depicted was from the southeast corner of Mr. Foose's home.
Correct.
To where?
To the
fence line.
Directly east.
To the fence line.
Correct.
And that's where the tape measure was 38 feet 4 inches.
Yep.
And that was indicated by the weed you looked at on the page, the attachment of your pre-filed testimony.
Yes.
And then from the location of the fence line between you and Mr. Foose, you then took a tape measure and measured to the approximate center line of the pipeline.
Yep.
And the measurement there was?
I did not take a picture of that, and it was.
You don't even have to guess.
Okay.
If I could ask the staff just to definitively, or as close they can, get a distance, please. All right, we've got about 199 feet. Do you see that? And that would be approximately from the easternmost portion of Mr. Foose's home to where the depicted white line is on the KMZ map. Do you see that?
Yep.
And is that roughly approximate to what you would guesstimate it would be?
Yes.
And are you familiar, and have you made Mr. Foose familiar that other persons tried to intervene but were denied intervention because they weren't directly affected, as in they didn't own land where the proposed pipeline would be located?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that that would have dissuaded Mr. Foose from taking any further actions because such attempts would have been hopeless?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Dublinski tried to make the point that, well, if land went for $26,000 an acre in your county, and they offered you more than a 26,000 acre for the hazardous easement, that what are you complaining about? Because you're getting more than land is going for. Were you tracking his insinuation there?
Yeah, but that's, the income off it every year would be less because it's been proven by a friend of mine where the Dakota Access Pipeline went.
That's right. And the land that was sold was free of a hazardous, potentially deadly pipeline, correct?
Correct.
And I suppose you, like a lot of farmers, take a long-term view on the field and the production and what it means to your overall operation.
Correct.
So the fact that Summit may have offered more than $26,000 an acre to place a hazardous pipeline forever and reduce your yields forever, did that impress you very much?
No, it did not impress me at all.
All right. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. Excuse me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we will plan on taking a break at 10 o'clock, but let's go ahead and get started on your next witness, Mr. Jorde.
Certainly. We'll call Alvin Sandbolte. Alvin. And Mr. Chair, as Alvin Sandbolte is approaching, I would just for the record note that his twin brother, Calvin, is also here, and there's two separate parcels, and so Alvin is going to address one of the parcels, and Calvin will address the other parcel.
Okay. Mr. Sandbolte, am I saying your last name correctly? Correct. Okay. Okay. Make sure you're speaking into the microphone. You don't have to move up. You can move the microphone towards you, whatever you'd like. Just make sure we can hear you.
Correct.
And then you can move that around however you'd like. All right, go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Good morning, sir. Can you please state your name?
Alvin Sandbolte.
And Mr. Sandbolte, you have a twin brother, Calvin, that you farm with. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you prepared what's known as pre-filed testimony with some questions and answers and some attachments and documents relative to some of your concerns about the potential hazardous pipeline by Summit being located on one of your parcels. Is that correct?
Correct.
And rather than going through all of those same question and answers, would the answers you gave in writing be substantially similar if we were to ask you those same questions today?
Correct.
And as you sit here, can you think of any material correction or error that you think is very important to be corrected? All right. Did you have any particular update that you wanted to add based on anything you've learned since your pre-filed testimony was submitted? All right. And I understand you're a man of few words in my interactions with you. I would offer Exhibit 415, pre-filed testimony.
Are there objections?
And that includes all of the pre-filed exhibits.
That's correct.
No objections. All right, seeing no objections, the board will admit.
And if we could just pull the K and Z up, and then I'll tender this witness in a moment, please. Okay. And sir, you and your brother have interests in the two parcels, the two red squares on the screen that are side by side. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And you're prepared to answer questions folks might have about the parcel to the east, the one that shows some looks like a home, a farmstead, and some outbuildings. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, very good. And so I don't know if you've been watching at all, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn you over to others who might have some questions for you, okay? Yeah. All right, thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Mr. Sandbolt, I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club. And looking at the KMZ and looking also at your prepared testimony, you said your home is not a safe distance from the pipeline. How far would your home be from the pipeline route?
Couple 100 feet, I guess.
Okay. And do you and your brother both live there?
I do.
You do. Okay. Where does your brother live?
2-3 miles away.
Okay. And so why do you think that's not a safe distance?
Well, you see that path there that it's crossing. We haul all our grain and manure. We cross that path all the time with heavy equipment. If that pipeline would rupture, we kind of live in a valley there. It would come right over us, we feel.
So why do you think it's important to say that you live in a valley?
Well, that's where it's gonna drift.
Okay. Is it your understanding that the CO2, when the pipeline ruptures, the CO2 would seek lower ground?
Yeah.
In your written testimony, you said that the pipeline would impact plans for further expansion of operations or building another home. What plans for further expansion of your operation do you have?
None right now.
So what were you referring to in your written testimony?
Well, if I would want to put a hog confinement near there or build a new house, that no longer would be an option.
In your written testimony also, you claim that there are less intrusive and more direct routes. Did you ever talk to anybody from Summit about an alternative route?
Yes.
And what were those discussions?
They blew me off. They weren't interested.
And what would be a more appropriate route as far as you're concerned?
Well, I don't know if I have any.
You also said in your written testimony that the pipeline would decrease the value of your land. How do you know that?
Well, I think it's just common sense.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Whippel?
I just have a couple things to clarify in the record. If we could leave the KMZ up, please. The witness estimated a couple 100 feet, but if we could actually measure it from where it crosses the path for the machinery to the structures there. So would you agree, sir, that that's about 330 feet?
Sure.
It's probably hard for you to see.
Sure, that's
Yeah.
good.
So if we could zoom back out a little bit. there's a substantial portion of your property where it appears the route could be directed not at a southwest to northeast angle, but at a right angle somewhere in the field that would move it substantially farther away from the house. Would you agree? Yeah. And it could still cross both of those county roads at right angles. Would that be a more acceptable route and still be on your property, but would that be a better route for you?
Well, I still have to cross it.
Agree. And
But if you had to choose between one or the other?
well, that would be more acceptable.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Colas?
Good afternoon, Mr. Sambold. I'm back here, clear back here. I'm also a landowner, Jean Colas. I had a few questions. I see some notches. Do you have some easements on your property?
Rural water.
Where are those located?
Kind of by the gravel road there, way on the east. I guess I don't know how to work this. Along the gravel road, right in our land.
Do you know why on the route they have two areas on the southwest and also on the northeast where they go straight across instead of continue the diagonal?
I'm not sure.
Is there any kind of a land topography there that might?
It's just the neighbor's line fence between us two. I have no idea.
Now you and your brother operate the farm.
Correct.
You obviously have concerns about, because of the location, the diagonal across your two parcels, the fact that part of that area would be cut off during construction and you would have to continuously turn your equipment instead of going in a straight line.
Sure.
Mr. Sandbolt, can you just make sure you're talking into the mic? The online stream's having a hard time picking you up, so sorry to interrupt.
Did someone at any time discuss the risks or hazards of the pipeline?
Oh, when we bring it up, they didn't want to hear anything of it.
So they did not answer your questions,
Correct.
but you did present them to them.
Correct.
Do you have concern for your and your brother's safety if you operate over that pipeline?
Yes.
Is there any part of that pipeline that could be crossing what you would consider erodible land? Because you mentioned that your homestead was in a lower area. That's why I was wondering how graduated.
Well, not really.
Do you have several tile fields?
No.
Have you attempted to get insurance?
No.
When you mentioned you thought your land would be devalued because of that, is that because you don't think anybody in their right mind would purchase land with a hazardous CO2 pipeline, critical one going through their land?
Yes.
Are you concerned about wear and tear exposing the pipeline from your heavy equipment that you're forced to drive over it?
Yes.
What is your emergency response system there in your area?
EMTs and fire trucks and ambulances, all with gas engines, diesel engines.
Do you think they would be able to respond to your homestead or anything around there?
Well, probably not.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Hike?
Hello, Mr. Sandbolt. I'm Chris Hike. I'm a landowner as well. When did you first learn about the pipeline going on your property?
Maybe a year and a half ago.
Did you attend informational meetings?
Pardon?
Did you attend some community informational meetings on it?
No, I did not. No.
What kind of interactions have you, what sort of interactions have you had with Summit? They come to your house, they call?
Oh, about every 2 weeks somebody would show up at our house.
Do you believe they acted in good faith with negotiations with you?
Yes, we just had a difference of opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Jorde for redirect.
Sir, following up on that good faith question, earlier you had testified that you had shared concerns and they didn't want to hear it and they apparently didn't respect or take any of that into consideration. Would you consider it to be good faith to not listen to the landowner and the landowner's concerns? Well, no. Okay, I just want to make sure we're using the right words here to describe your actual situation. And then again, I think in the value of land, you said common sense of why land would go down. Just to close that loop, you wouldn't purchase land with a CO2 hazardous pipeline on it, would you? Correct. All right. And you understand that local farmers tend to make a market when land comes for sale in their community? Yes. And the less buyers, oftentimes less price, right? Correct. Now, Mr. Whippel asked you a question where you had to choose between two bad options as a potential location for something you don't want and don't believe should be forced on you. Do you remember those questions? Yes. And so at the end of the day, you don't believe the board should force eminent domain on you and change the direction and course of the rest of your farming life and this parcel forever, do you? Correct. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you, sir. You are dismissed. Appreciate it. Hold on.